So my name is Troy Firebrace. I'm a Yorta Yorta Djadjurrung man. I'm a contemporary Aboriginal artist, and today we are here in my studio. I actually started developing artwork as a teenager in high school, and my years in high school was really tailored around just developing something. It wasn't really aimed at Aboriginal art, it really was just expressing who I was. And then eventually I picked it up as a Year 12 subject, and I really started to explore my culture, my identity as an artist. And from that point on, I started developing artwork in the Aboriginal art scene and started to really collaborate with not only with my family, my knowledge of country, but also exploring that further. And essentially it was a lot of self-discovery, a lot of conversations with aunties and uncles in the community, and then that kind of helped towards developing my practice, which I eventually dedicated 3 years to here in Bendigo. The question I had was, how do I develop an Aboriginal art style that's unique to me? But for me as an individual artist, I wanted to know, how do I combine my identity as an artist with my identity as a culture? I guess what motivates me to make my art is exploring different ways to produce an artwork that's connected to country. I love the fact that the Indigenous arts industry has its own mechanisms. It has its own movement in itself. I want to explore, where can I take that and how far can I take that? So when I was going through La Trobe University, I was always kind of pulled in towards the question around, like with Westernized culture, there was many phases that the arts industry went through. Cubism, Surrealism, Expressionism, all these different stages of art practices and styles. And I always wondered, has Aboriginal art had the same progression? Has it ever had those stages of different styles that have came out of that movement? So it's about, how do I push my practice in the Aboriginal arts realm to that next level, that next evolution stage? Really, for me, it's about going out into community, being exposed to different arts practice, and obviously trial and error in the studio. But you can also go down the route in where you need to understand how Aboriginal art came about back in the day. How was those patterns, how was those symbols developed? And it's about taking the same practice or that same stance, looking closely at country, finding the pattern work within the landscape. So it's taking the same methodology that was used thousands of years ago and reapplying that now. So the inspiration that came for RMIT, the works come from the Australians' kind of reconciliation, the plan or the actual ambition to achieve true reconciliation in Australia. And so when you look at Reconciliation Australia, the website itself, it has these kind of 5 elements. And in those 5 elements, it really does talk about like the racism, really does talk about the unity, institutional integrity. And with these artworks, it's about transforming the space that represents RMIT in the sense of what's their ambition. And the ambition that I've got from talking with the mob over at RMIT is that they want change. They want change not only within the structure or within their own learning, but they want change in the sense of the environment, the space that they're in. I want an artwork that can be utilised within that structure. Whether that's a reminder or whether that's an opportunity. There are now artworks on RMIT's walls that can be utilised in a teaching point, in a reminder point, ambition, goals, whatever it may be. But it's always going to be there as a reminder that in this world we might have harsh lines, geometric shapes, concrete walls, but it's still within Aboriginal country. You're still within country in itself. And as creatures of earth, sometimes we need to be reminded that we need to come back down to Mother Earth, we need to come back down to country. and be reconnected with the bigger picture. For me, surrounding myself with objects like skateboards, didgeridoos and artwork from artists that I've known and met not only helps me to, just to push on, but also it gives me that sense to take a step back from your own work and just admire what's around you first. An interesting part about being an artist is that you've got two aspects to yourself. The first is that aspect where you're developing artwork to put bread on the table. And then there are the other aspects of you where you're developing artwork for your studio practice. And for me, as an artist and inside this space, you've got to have that fine balance as to what is your studio practice and what is simply just to put bread on the table. It's very, very easy for an artist to fall onto that. I just need to make artwork to put bread on the table. And that's a dangerous space to be in. So for me, in my practice and within my business, I started off with first developing that studio practice. And then after a while, you start to balance between developing artworks for a client for an X amount of dollars, but utilising that opportunity to explore yourself as an artist. As an artist, you can be overrun very quickly, especially as an Aboriginal artist. A lot of people are looking for opportunities to learn about Aboriginal culture and also to display and have that visualisation of Aboriginal culture within their business and organisation. So you can be overrun very easily with a lot of inquiries or a lot of projects that you've got going on. But it's about how much passion you are putting into those jobs or into those inquiries, and what are you doing to provide yourself as an artist to keep doing that, to keep pushing that forward. I want to develop something that's unique and exciting, not just for community, but for myself as an artist. And my whole world literally is surrounded by being creative, and I can never stop that. I found with my own practice, being and experiencing and being involved with it, and I think what helped me the most, especially through my learnings, was touching base with other artists and being a part of that arts community. And so a lot of those skills I've either learnt, self-taught, or just simply putting the ear to the ground and having those conversations and learning from other people. There has been opportunities where I've turned down because the aspirations of the artwork didn't align with what I believe in. And in those moments, you have to ask yourself the question, okay, so why do I feel that way? In Aboriginal art, whether it's dance, song, music, art form, whatever it is, Aboriginal culture is taught through those mediums. And the good thing about being an Aboriginal artist is that the more you start practicing, the more you start knowing about culture. Because the more I learn through the art, and you're always learning, the more that in the education sector, you are going to deliver a more fulfilling lesson, a more, I guess, humble and authentic way of ensuring that culture is taught in a culturally safe way. And as educators, that's what our job is, to be that conduit in the middle. Take this knowledge, make it easier to understand. My advice to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander person out there whose aspiration is to become an artist is to discover yourself as an artist first. Then embed that within your knowledge of culture. It's important to understand Aboriginal culture isn't just something that's at the surface. What you are looking at is something further, something deeper. And the question I want you to explore is, what is your response to these artworks? What is the story that you are going to take away from these artworks? And how is that going to embed within your own life and journey from this point onwards? I want change in the sense of when we are teaching Aboriginal perspective within a school, within education, that it's done in confidence. It's done with the ambition to ensure all students has the rights of education, but as well as a robust education. I want change in the community where Not only does the Aboriginal people in the community get and understand and have that deep connection with the artwork that I produce because they're familiar with it, or it does touch deeply within them around their identity. I don't want non-Indigenous people to have the same reaction. I want to take them on the same journey, because the importance of Aboriginal culture is what I want to change within people. I want people to see Aboriginal culture in the same importance that myself and the rest of my family and community see it as. When I first got the request from Peter from RMIT, I thought it was ambitious of him, because the word he said was transform it. As an artist, I have never been given that word before. I've been given many things, but to be able to transform a space, that's a whole level. And as I said to Peter, that's dangerous words. For me, that was exciting, because I am used to clients kind of saying, I want this, I want that. But with this project, it was very much within the freedom of who I am as an artist. So Bayala, in a sense, it talks about the red gum. So Bayala in Yori language means red gum. And it's a natural form or organic shape on top of a geometric background. It really does talk about how the tree roots of a tree not only grounds the tree, but it also stabilizes the earth around it, and how important that is. The mural itself really does call for us to stop what we're doing in this kind of machine type world, the digital world, where everything seems to demand us to go from 0 to 100 in a matter of 5 seconds. And it really does call for us to be like the red gum. Ground yourself within the earth itself. So floodplains, it does talk about how things that naturally happen in the landscape happen for a reason. And the importance that we put onto that, the importance of knowledge and culture, really does allow those things to happen naturally. Where if we try to, say dam those rivers, or create these kind of beds that hold that water, not allow it to flood, then what are we doing outside of that river bank? How are those plantations affected from us forcing something that naturally happens? So that painting itself talks about how we need to sit with Aboriginal communities, Aboriginal people, especially when it comes to those important decisions around country, around the health of country. And how do we embed practice, cultural practice, and importantly, the importance of those things into our policies, into our procedures when we are looking after country, or at least living and working with country. The Deep is an artwork that talks about yourself as an individual and what's below the surface. It's painted in a way to make it look like you're looking through the atmosphere or looking through clouds because of the pearlescence in the background. Underneath that is this kind of the gold and the shimmering and the network that holds all that up. And then you'll see within that is this river. And so it talks about racism in the sense of being able to look beyond what we perceive things, especially when it comes to people. We assume that Aboriginal people need to be dark, or Aboriginal people need to be a certain way. But we need to understand when we look beyond that surface, and we do need to look beyond that surface, underneath is something a lot more special than what we just see on top. So that artwork itself, it really does talk to racism in the sense of making sure that we're not placing our views on people. We are not acting upon biased views as well. So unity, it talks about the unity of two cultures. And my work within the Catholic sector, that really kind of challenged me as an Aboriginal person, and trying to find a way where, well, I work within this culture that's already established. How do I embed my own culture within that and still have a voice? So unity came about through my work of education, and the stained glass look really does come from those churches within. And It's a testament to the work that we do within education, but also the testament to what the Catholic Church had to go through themselves individually, that change. At one point they were very much, it's us and us alone. The only way you can get into our schools is that you must be Catholic. If you're not Catholic, don't even bother. They stepped away from that to being more inclusive, to celebrating other cultures and respecting that. Yes, Paperbark talks about law, culture in history. So the paperbark itself, the artwork is painted in a way that looks like paperbark's been torn off the tree itself. Behind that is the constellation of stars and ancestors within the sky in itself, and how utilising the constellation helps guide us through our decisions through history. It's important to understand that in history, Aboriginal culture has been violently changed in a sense of through colonisation, through laws being passed down through Parliament, and the notion that Aboriginal people weren't at those tables during those decisions, such as the child protection laws or the Aboriginal protection laws, which resulted in the stolen generation. Paperbark really does talk to not only the history of what was torn out of Australia and what was torn out of Aboriginal communities, but it talks about that we need to place the importance of Aboriginal people at those tables, hence why you have within that artwork all those U's in that bigger circle. Because paperbark in the sense was the old way of painting on. You would paint on a paperbark in a sacred way, and what it was on there was a sacred document. In the westernised culture, your documents are usually written up, pro formas, whatever it is. For Aboriginal communities, placing them on that paperbark is their policies, is their procedures, is the direction of the community and where we want the community to go. I guess when it comes to myself and my practice and where it's heading and where I want it to go, I have no idea. I just know I love what I do. I know that what I am doing is authentic to me and my culture, and as well as what I'm doing, it makes me happy. And I guess if that takes me above and beyond and I end up owning my own gallery or I end up with a manager, I don't know. I just know that whatever direction that I'm going to go in and whatever that may look like, I'm going to love it because it stems from my passion and it's what I do on a daily basis.